Working the graveyard shift at the gas station wasn't exactly a dream job, but it was easy money. Most nights, I passed the time scrolling through my phone or zoning out to the low hum of the fluorescent lights. Traffic was sparse and my regulars were the same. Truckers refueling, sleepy travelers grabbing coffee, and the occasional sketchy guy buying beer at 2 a.m. But that night was different. It started around midnight when a red sedan pulled up to the farthest pump. Nothing unusual about that except the car just sat there. The engine idled, and the headlights cut through the darkness, but no one got out. I kept an eye on it while pretending to stock candy bars. 5 minutes passed, then 10. The driver still didn't budge. I thought maybe they'd fallen asleep or were having car trouble, so I stepped outside. The chill in the air bit at my skin as I walked toward the sedan. I knocked lightly on the driver's side window. "Everything okay, sir?" The glass was tinted, and I couldn't see inside. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the engine shut off and the headlights went dark. "Sir," I said again, my voice wavering. The door creaked open, but no one stepped out. I leaned slightly, peering into the car. The driver's seat was empty. A cold knot formed in my stomach as I backed away, my pulse quickening. The air felt heavier, like something was watching me. I hurried back inside, locking the door behind me. I watched from the counter, my eyes glued to the sedan. The car sat there, lifeless, like a predator waiting for its moment. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw movement in the reflection of the glass door. A man was standing in the middle of the parking lot, directly under the flickering light of a lamppost. He was tall and thin, his face obscured by a hood. His posture was stiff, almost unnatural, and he was facing the gas station, though I couldn't make out his features. "Hey!" I called out, more to reassure myself than anything. "We're closed." He didn't respond. He didn't move. I grabbed my phone and dialed my manager. It went straight to voicemail. Figures. Next, I tried the police, but my shaking fingers fumbled with the keypad, and I ended up dropping the phone. When I looked up, the man was gone. I scanned the parking lot, my heart pounding. The sedan was still there, but the driver's side door was now shut. I tried to calm myself. Maybe it was just some guy messing with me, or maybe I'd imagined him altogether. But then, a sharp, metallic click made me freeze. The sound had come from the employee door at the back of the station, the one I'd definitely locked earlier. My throat tightened as I stared at the dark hallway leading to the storeroom. "Hello," I called out, my voice trembling. No response. I grabbed the nearest thing I could use as a weapon, a metal flashlight, and crept toward the back. My steps were slow and deliberate, each one echoing in the eerie silence. The storeroom door was slightly ajar, the faint light from inside spilling into the hallway. I nudged the door open with the flashlight, holding my breath. The room was empty, or so I thought. As I turned to leave, I heard it. A soft, raspy breathing coming from the corner. My flashlight beam trembled as I swung it around, landing on a figure crouched behind a stack of boxes. It was the man from the parking lot. His hood had fallen back, revealing a gaunt face with hollow eyes that seemed to glint in the darkness. His lips curled into a slow, unsettling grin. "Why are you here?" I stammered, my voice barely above a whisper. His grin widened as he stood, his movements jerky and deliberate. "Just looking for something," he said, his voice low and gravelly. I took a step back, my hand tightening around the flashlight. "You need to leave. Now." He tilted his head, as if considering my words. "But I like it here," he said, taking a step closer. I turned and bolted, slamming the storeroom door shut behind me. I grabbed the phone again, this time managing to call the police. As I waited for them to arrive, I kept my eyes on the storeroom door, half expecting him to burst through. But when the police finally showed up, the storeroom was empty. The officers searched the station and the surrounding area but found no sign of the man or the sedan. The next morning, I handed in my resignation. Whatever that man was, he wasn't just some random creep. Sometimes, late at night, I still see that red sedan in my dreams, its headlights glaring like eyes, and I wonder, what was he looking for? And did he find it? The grocery store where I work is usually a dull, predictable place. Stock the shelves, scan the items, clean up the occasional spill. Nothing exciting happens, except maybe on a Saturday afternoon when everyone suddenly remembers they need milk and bread. But the night shift, that's different. It's quiet, almost unnervingly so. A stillness hangs in the air, amplified by the buzzing fluorescence and the hum of the refrigerators. It feels like the store is holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. I started taking the night shift a month ago. The pay was better and I liked the solitude. Or at least I thought I did. That night began like any other. It was just me and Martha, the janitor. Martha was an older woman with a raspy voice from years of smoking and a knack for making anyone feel at ease. We joked about how empty the place was as she mopped the aisles, and I sat at the register flipping through a magazine. Around 2 a.m., I decided to check the back room where we kept the frozen goods. A delivery had come in earlier, and I hadn't gotten around to sorting it. As I pushed open the heavy door to the freezer, a wave of icy air hit me, making me shiver. The freezer was massive, a labyrinth of shelves stacked with boxes of frozen pizzas, vegetables, and desserts. The only sound was the soft whir of the cooling fans. I grabbed a clipboard and started inventorying the shipment. That's when I heard it, a faint rustling sound, like fabric brushing against metal. I froze, my breath visible in the cold air. "Hello," I called out, my voice echoing off the freezer walls. No answer. I told myself it was probably Martha or maybe just the fans making an odd noise. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't alone. I turned back to the clipboard, trying to focus. But then I heard it again, this time louder. A distinct shuffle, followed by the soft creak of a shelf shifting under weight. "Who's there?" I demanded, my voice trembling. Silence. I stepped deeper into the freezer, the cold biting through my thin uniform. My heart pounded as I rounded the corner, half expecting to find Martha playing a prank. But the aisle was empty, and then I saw it. A woman stood at the far end of the freezer, her back to me. She was barefoot, her pale skin almost blending into the frosty backdrop. Her long, dark hair hung down her back, dripping wet as if she'd just stepped out of a lake. She wore a thin, white nightgown that clung to her like a second skin. "Ma'am," I said, my voice cracking. "You're not supposed to be back here." She didn't respond. She didn't move. I took a hesitant step closer. "Are you okay?" She turned slowly, her movements unnaturally stiff. Her face was gaunt, her eyes sunken and dark, but it was her lips that made my stomach churn. They were blue, cracked, and frozen, as if she'd been in the cold far too long. "Help me?" she whispered, her voice barely audible over the hum of the fans. My instincts screamed at me to run, but my legs felt rooted to the spot. What are you doing in here?" I stammered. Before she could answer, the lights flickered, plunging the freezer into darkness for a split second. When they came back on, she was gone. I backed away, nearly slipping on the icy floor. My breaths came in shallow gasps as I stumbled out of the freezer and into the stockroom. "Martha!" I shouted, my voice echoing in the empty space. She appeared from the main aisle, her mop in hand. "What's all the yelling about?" "There's a woman in the freezer," I said, pointing frantically. Martha frowned. "What are you talking about? There's no one here but us." I grabbed her arm and dragged her to the freezer. My hands were shaking as I pushed the door open, half expecting to see the woman standing there. But the freezer was empty. "No," I muttered. "She was right here." Martha gave me a long, concerned look. "You've been working too many nights," she said. "Maybe you're seeing things." I didn't argue. What could I say? That I'd seen a barefoot woman in a nightgown wandering around a freezer? I tried to shake it off, but something felt wrong. The air seemed heavier, the silence more oppressive. I forced myself to finish my shift, but I couldn't stop thinking about her. When I got home, I decided to look up the history of the store. What I found made my blood run cold. Years ago, before the building became a grocery store, it was a meatpacking plant. A worker had died there, A young woman who'd accidentally locked herself in the freezer overnight. By the time they found her, it was too late. Her name? Sarah. The next night, I refused to go near the freezer. But I swear, every time I passed the stockroom, I felt eyes watching me. Who was she? And why did she choose to appear to me? I work nights at a 24-hour diner, the kind with neon lights buzzing above the windows and a jukebox in the corner that nobody ever uses. It's the place you'd pass on a long highway drive and think, who even eats there at this hour? But truckers, insomniacs, and the occasional late-night wanderer are our regulars. Most nights are uneventful. Quiet stretches where I wipe down tables or count the cash register just to pass the time. That night started no different. The clock read 3:12 a.m., and the place was dead. The cook, Ray, was in the back prepping for breakfast, and I was wiping down the counter for the third time that hour. My eyes were heavy, and I was trying not to nod off when I noticed him. A man stood outside the diner, just beyond the glow of the neon lights. He was tall, wearing a hoodie pulled low over his face. He didn't move, didn't approach, just stood there, staring through the glass. I gave a small wave, the polite kind you'd give someone who looks like they're debating whether to come inside. But he didn't respond. His face was hidden in shadow, and the way he stood so still made me uneasy. I turned to the kitchen. Ray, you see this guy? I called. Ray poked his head out from behind the swinging door, wiping his hands on a rag. What guy? I turned back, and the man was gone. Just gone. My heart skipped a beat, but I told myself he must have walked away. Maybe he was just passing through. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. About 15 minutes later, the bell above the door jingled. I nearly jumped. The man walked in, his hood still up, his face shadowed. He didn't sit, didn't say a word, just stood near the entrance, his hands buried in his pockets. Can I help you? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. He reached into his hoodie, and I froze. My mind raced with images of him pulling out a gun or a knife. But instead, he took out a crumpled $20 bill and placed it on the counter. Coffee? Food? I stammered. The man didn't respond. He didn't even look at me. He turned and walked toward the bathrooms in the back, his steps slow and deliberate. I waited, staring at the $20. It was old and worn, the corners frayed. Something about it felt off. I glanced at the clock, 3:37 a.m., and decided to check on him. I knocked on the bathroom door. Hey, everything okay in there? No answer. I knocked again, harder this time. Sir, nothing. I pushed the door open, my stomach twisting with unease. The bathroom was empty. I checked the stalls, the sink, even behind the door. There was no sign of him. Ray! I shouted, my voice trembling. The guy's gone. Ray came out of the kitchen, a confused look on his face. What are you talking about? I told him everything, the man, the $20, the bathroom. He shrugged it off, saying I must have been tired, but I knew what I saw. I went back to the counter, hoping to find some clue that I wasn't losing my mind. The $20 was still there. I picked it up, and that's when I noticed something strange. The bill was dated 1974, and scrawled across the back in faint, faded ink were the words, "Help me." I dropped the bill like it burned me. My pulse raced as I backed away, bumping into Ray. What's wrong? He asked, his brow furrowed. I pointed to the $20, but when he picked it up, the writing was gone. The bill looked perfectly normal. Go home, man, Ray said, shaking his head. You're seeing things. I wanted to believe him. I really did. But as I grabbed my jacket and headed for the door, I caught something in the corner of my eye. The man was standing outside again, his hood pulled low, his body still as a statue. He lifted a hand and waved, the motion slow and deliberate. I blinked, and he was gone. It's been a week since that night, and I haven't stopped looking over my shoulder. I never told anyone else, but the diner's cameras confirmed what I feared the most. They showed me talking to an empty counter, holding a $20 bill that wasn't there. So who was that man? And why do I keep dreaming about him every night? Working the night shift at the Crescent View Hotel was usually uneventful. My job was simple: man the front desk, check in the occasional late guest, and make sure no one wandered where they weren't supposed to. It was a mid-tier hotel, popular for travelers needing a cheap but clean place to crash for the night. That night, the hotel was quieter than usual. We were nearly at full occupancy, but the hallways felt still, as though the air was thicker than it should be. Around 1 a.m., as I was scrolling through my phone, the desk phone rang. "Front desk," I answered, trying not to sound bored. "Hi. This is Jason from room 616, said a hesitant male voice. "There's someone in my room." My heart jumped a little. "Someone in your room? Are you sure?" "Yes," he whispered, his voice trembling. I can hear them in the bathroom." A chill ran through me. "Okay, Jason, stay on the line. I'll call security and have them check it out." He exhaled sharply. "Please hurry." I called the on-duty security guard, Todd, and explained the situation. Todd grunted in response and said he'd head up. I stayed on the phone with Jason. "Help's on the way," I assured him. "Thanks," he muttered, his voice still shaky. "I just don't understand." I locked the door. The line went dead. "Jason? Jason?" I called out, but there was no response. I tried calling back, but the room phone went straight to voicemail. Uneasy, I waited for Todd to call back with an update. 5 minutes passed, then 10. Finally, Todd's voice came through the walkie-talkie. "Front desk, this is Todd. There's no one in room 616. "What do you mean?" I asked, frowning. "I mean the room's empty," he said. "No bags, no guest. Nothing." "That's impossible," I insisted. "He just called me." "Well, I'm standing here and the room's clean. Sheets haven't even been touched." "You sure he didn't mean a different room?" "No," I said firmly. "He said 616. Can you double-check?" Todd grumbled but complied. Yeah. Give me a minute." I hung up, confusion swirling in my mind. Maybe it was a prank? Maybe Jason had panicked and left the room? Before I could dwell on it, the phone rang again. Room 616. My stomach flipped as I picked up the receiver. "Hello. Why did you leave me?" Jason's voice cracked through the line. "He's still here." My mouth went dry. "Jason, security checked the room. There's no one." "I see him," Jason screamed, and the line cut out again. I shot out of my chair and grabbed the walkie-talkie. "Todd, get back to 616. Now." "I never left," Todd replied, his voice oddly calm. "But, there's something weird here." "What do you mean?" "The door. It's locked from the inside." My blood ran cold. That wasn't possible. Todd continued, his voice lower now. "And I swear I hear something. Like whispering." "Whispering?" I echoed, my hands trembling. "Yeah, like it's coming from the vents or something." Todd paused. "I'm calling the cops. This isn't right." "Do it," I said, clutching the desk for support. As I waited, the phone rang again. My instinct screamed at me not to answer, but I couldn't ignore it. "Front desk," I said, my voice barely audible. "You shouldn't have sent him," Jason's voice rasped. It was different now, deeper, almost guttural. "He's mine now." Click. Todd's walkie-talkie went silent after that call. When the police arrived, they found Todd's flashlight outside the door to 616, but he was gone. The room was empty, just as Todd had described earlier. No luggage, no guest, and no sign of struggle. But the weirdest part? Room 616 wasn't in our system. The Crescent View only had 5 floors. The next morning, I quit. I still don't understand what happened that night. Who was Jason? What did Todd hear? And what exactly is room 616? Sometimes, late at night, I wonder if that room still exists, or if someone else will answer a call from it.